Welcome to this presentation covering the orientation materials for our class, Advanced Legal Documents Preparation. This is going to be a pretty long lecture. I apologize in advance for taking up so much of your time. I do have a few hints to begin with. First of all, you don't want to have to watch this video more times than you absolutely have to. You may end up needing to watch it twice, but the better course, or my recommendation is, let me put it that way, is for you to take careful notes during this lecture and to pause me when I'm saying more than you can write down in a period of time. Otherwise, if you listen to me but kind of half listening, kind of half not, you're going to end up listening to this presentation multiple times, and so it's not actually going to end up saving you money. So please pause me right now, get a notebook and paper or your laptop or whatever you want to use to take notes, and be prepared routinely to pause me to go back and re-listen to a particular statement. You ought to have probably several pages of notes. I have several pages of notes that I'm going to be covering. I'm going to have a checklist of things that I go through. And so if you end this having less than, say, 3 full pages of note paper, I'm going to suggest you go back and re-listen so that you will be in the best position to be successful in this course. Really understanding how this course works is going to set you up for success. If you don't pay close attention or don't watch the whole video, I'm concerned that you're going to end up spinning your wheels in the course, that you're going to work hard but not see the results that you had hoped to accomplish. So go ahead and pause, get your stuff, and restart me. So we're going to start with a tour of our Canvas course. This is probably my biggest single Canvas course that I offer. There's more stuff on here than is in any of my other courses. There's a ton of stuff here. And a very common concern that I get from students is, I can't find X. I would say 95% of the time when I get that question from a student, it's really there and it's where it's supposed to be. The student just hasn't looked everywhere on Canvas. So if you're not finding it, more likely than not, it's there. Just keep on looking. Look more so. Look in the places that you haven't already looked. Of course, it's always possible that I flipped a switch and turned something off that should be on, so I'm by no means infallible. And if you've looked everywhere a couple of times, maybe ask another classmate, hey, were you able to find this? And you both kind of look at each other and say, I have no idea where that is. Then that's a good time to reach out to me and say, hey, Professor Groover, we can't find this. Would you mind checking into this for me? But so just be aware that there's a lot here, and I would probably set aside this week about 30 minutes just to dive in, click on stuff, get familiar with the setup. The modules, for the most part, with the exception of the first module, which is our orientation module, most of our other modules are set up in a similar order, and so you'll get familiar with how things are set up going forward. And so it's a good way to get familiar from the very beginning so that you aren't going to be frustrated by not being able to find what you want. So please do spend some time exploring. Another thing that sometimes is helpful for students is to use Collins orientation resources. We'll talk more about this later on in the presentation, or more information is available. If you haven't taken an online course before at Collins, congratulations on being here. I hope that this is going to be a great experience, but it is a bit of a different format for students to be successful in, and so it's helpful to consider all the resources that you have available to you. Certainly I'm a resource. Canvas is a resource, but Collins has additional resources for you. So please consider using those resources. I would encourage you to explore those this week, because this week is not a very busy week from this course's perspective. So this would be a good time to get your big toe in the water and to figure out how everything works before you suddenly have 7 different assignments and you are struggling to get everything done and learn how the systems work. So let's look at our orientation module. Of course, we have here, we can see it says start here, orientation lecture. You must have found this because you're listening to me, right? So that's success, congratulations. I don't know if we'll have 2 lectures this particular semester or not, so this one might not be here. If you don't see a second lecture, it must be because I was able to get everything in the first lecture. Of course, if you see a second or a third, then that means watch them all, obviously. So we start with the lectures. I lead with this because this is what's going to get your bearings and help you know how to navigate. So do this stuff first, and then we're going to go through in this lecture all these other tools. You can see under the lectures we have a topic called Assign Materials. These are things that you should do to for this particular module to become successful, to become proficient in the items. And you can see that there is some videos to watch, and you can see this little, I call them handcuffs. I think it's supposed to be something else, but to me they look like handcuffs anyway, or maybe eyeglasses. Anyway, these 2 we'll call them handcuffs. These handcuffs are links to videos. You may think, oh my gosh, I have to watch 2 videos. These are super short. I don't think any of them are even longer than 5 minutes. So not a big time investment. And then you're going to want to spend some time with the Aspen Handbook. This handbook will cover the grammar ideas that you need to be familiar with. You can see there's not a lot of reading here. I think maybe a total of 15 pages, but it's fairly dense stuff. And so when you are reviewing the material, you may well find that, okay, I get these examples, but I'm not sure that I've really mastered the concepts. If that's the case and you want additional support, please contact me. Come to my office hours. I would be delighted to spend a great deal of time helping you be successful, helping you master the materials. You're responsible for all of this materials, so don't think, okay, I watched the video, I must be done. The question that you ought to ask yourself is, have I mastered that material? And if you say, you know, I listened to the video, but I'm not sure I could apply that, or I'm not sure I understand all the ins and outs of that particular idea, that's wonderful. That's very mature of you to have identified your strengths and opportunities. So when you're in that position, my first suggestion would be watch the video again just to make sure that maybe a second viewing might do that. If you still feel a little bit uncertain, no worries, just contact me. I have office hours throughout the week. Usually I have some remote or virtual office hours, and so we can spend hours, if you would like, going over these concepts. We'll go over example after example until it clicks. Please know that you are not in this course alone. Of course, I'm not there in the classroom. I can't tell when you have a confused look on your face. It requires that you make that gesture to me, that you contact me and say, I'm not sure about this idea. Let's talk some more about it. So diagnose yourself as you cover material and make sure that really you have that mastery that you want to have before you go on to the next thing. So after we have the assigned materials, and by the way, as you can probably see, we don't have a lot of readings that we're going to be doing in this class. So that's a neat thing. Reading is fun, but this class is not at all reading intensive. It's quite light from that perspective. And that's true for I think probably all of the modules. Next section, we have assignments. Because this is the orientation module, there aren't as many assignments as we have in other modules. First of all, we have the discussion board. I think every module has a discussion board. The discussion board is about there are 3 things that the student needs to do in order to accomplish the tasks of the discussion board. He or she must make an initial post, which I call a substantive post. He or she needs to respond to the substance of that particular issue. Let's go ahead and just click on this so we can see what that looks like. And you can see here we have the discussion board post. We can see the number of points available. And you can see here we have the topic that you're going to cover. And then you can see there's some general information about how to go about making the post. I think that's actually not 10%. I think it's 5%. So that's an incorrect number there. It should be 5, not 10. But in any event, so you'll respond to this post. There's nothing obviously to prepare for in this response because it's an introduction, but the other discussion boards are substantive, so will have need to have become familiar with the material before you're ready to make the post. You need to make your substantive post by noon on Saturday. The reason the discussion board will close for everyone at 11:59 p.m. on Sunday. But you need to make your substantive post by noon on Saturday so that everyone will have all of the substantive posts to review at least by that point. And so when people will have posts in which to reply, because you need to make 2 reply posts. And the reply post needs to be, as you can see here, at least 2 sentences long, 2 grammatically correct sentences, of course. So keep those timelines in mind. What we don't want is we don't want everybody posting their substantive post at 10 p.m. on Sunday night because there's no turnaround time. The goal is for there to be a lively discussion. I want you to visit the discussion board at least 3 times over the course of the semester. I would ask, even though the deadline is noon on Saturday, I would ask that you post your substantive post, by say Wednesday if you could. That would be great. That would help the discussion go forward. But the drop dead time is noon on Saturday. There is a possibility of 10 points. Be sure that your posts are substantive, that really address the issue, add to the discussion, that they are the length required in that particular post, and that they are submitted by the time that you're supposed to submit the post, and that they involve correct grammar and correct punctuation. One of the more common reasons that students get deductions is they forget to make a post. Usually it's a reply post they forget to make. So be sure not to do that. You don't want to lose points that are pretty easy to earn. One thing that I see with discussion board posts is that usually there's a lot of participation at the beginning of the semester, but by maybe say week 10, participation has dwindled. I like to say the discussion board posts are both the easiest points to earn in the class and the hardest points to earn. They're the easiest because even students who aren't being successful on the assignments are usually, if they try, going to do just fine on the discussion boards. If you are making a real effort and you are responding to the material in an appropriate way and talking about the issues that you're supposed to, you're going to do just fine on the discussion board posts. So that's what makes it easy. You're giving away points if you're not participating, is what I'm trying to say. What's hard about it is, though, that it requires a lot of consistency. You have to remember to do the 3 posts every week, and so it requires that you get into a routine, and it's easy to forget. And with all the other due dates that are coming down the pike and all the other responsibilities in your everyday life, it's easy to forget the discussion, the importance of the discussion board. But please don't be that person because this is 5% of your grade, and if you skip 1/3 of those, you've given up more than a percentage point. And these are the relatively easy points to earn. So you may at the end of the semester be wishing that perhaps you were able to spend a little bit more time on the discussion board and the easy points. Okay, so that's our discussion board. As I said before, you're going to have one during each one of the modules. It's going to open up at 12:01 a.m. on Monday, and it's going to close at 11:59 p.m. on Sunday. There will be only one discussion board open, assuming that this isn't a summer semester where we might have 2 modules open in a particular week. But during a long semester, there will just be 1 module a week, and so there will just be 1 discussion board. When you see a discussion board, you know that that discussion board is going to close at Sunday at 11:59 p.m. That discussion board is going to close the same week that that module ends, because the weeks that we use in this course, the week starts at 12:01 a.m. on Sunday and it ends at 11:59 p.m. So, 12:01 Monday morning, and it's going to close at 11:59 p.m. on Sunday. And so while we are in that module is when the discussion board is going to happen. Sometimes students get a little confused on this, and that is they think, but the assignments for that module aren't due until another week later. The way I like to think about that is I give students a grace week. You can call it an automatic extension if you want to. So a module closes, we'll say on Sunday, October 1st at 11:59 p.m. The discussion board is going to close at that time, but the assignments for that module aren't going to be due until the next Sunday at 11:59 p.m. My advice to you is don't think about that grace week as something you ought to count on. I mean, you can count on it. I'm not going to take it away, but you ought to plan on getting the work done during the module if you at all can. That's the better course of action. Because lots of things can happen. In the following week, you can get sick, you could have a work crisis that you're not able to spend as much time on it as you would like. You could have technical problems with your computer. You definitely don't want to be going into the weekend that the assignment is due and not having completed the assignment. You're just going to cause yourself a lot of anxiety. It's going to take just as much time to do it, whether you do it at the last minute or you do it well before the last minute. And so be kind to yourself and go ahead and complete those assignments several days before the due date, and that way you don't have to sweat it. You don't have to worry about technical problems. If you got the technical problems, you got all the time in the world to fix them before the due date. So the discussion board is going to close a week earlier than the assignments are due, but you don't want to take all that time up for the assignments. You probably want to treat the assignments as being due at the same time that that discussion board is closed. That's my little hint for you as you go forward on these assignments. Okay, so let's talk about the assignments. There's really, as I say, 3 types of assignments that we're going to have. One is the discussion board, which we've already talked about. The other 2 assignments are probably more important in terms of points. One is something that we're going to have in every module except for the first module, I think. I think that might be the only one. There might be another module that doesn't have it. But the vast majority of modules have an assignment, what I call a document assignment. So let me just go down to module 2. And we have a document assignment. You can see email assignment module 2. And you can see it says 30 points. Document assignments are worth 30 points. So what is a document assignment like? So let me go ahead and click on it so we can see an example. And here is the assignment. This one, you're going to create 4 different documents. You are working as a paralegal and you're drafting a series of email messages. So some pointers about this assignment, and really all of the document assignments, is that this needs to be the last thing that you do in a particular module. So you've already read all of the material, you've already watched the lectures at least once, or at least you are watching the lectures as you do the assignments. You don't want to do the assignment before you've received the material that you need, because what my lectures cover is how to do the assignments. It's very nuts and boltsy. I explained this is how you set the margins up. This is what font you use. This is when to indent. This is how much to indent. So I give you kind of a blow-by-blow, step-by-step how-to. It's like watching, a YouTube video with a cook show. I tell you what temperature to put the oven on, and what rack to put in your oven should you put the cake in, or whatever. It's a very similar format. So don't work on the assignment until you are watching the video. And in fact, I recommend that you do the assignment while you watch the video. So my suggestion in that level would be to be in front of your computer, to watch the video, to have the assignment ready, and then to routinely pause the video to just do what I talked about doing. Oh, okay, Groover said we need to choose Times New Roman font. Okay, well, let me go to my document. Okay, I have Times New Roman font. Okay, now Groover says we need to italicize this part. Okay, well, I'm going to italicize this part. So you go through each one of the tasks that I cover. That's going to put you in the best position to be successful. You're going to be multitasking. You're going to find that, while the video itself is going to take longer because you're going to be pausing, it's going to be a lot easier for you to complete the task. And if you watch the whole video and now you're doing the assignment, you're thinking, I forgot, what font am I supposed to use? And then you have to go back and watch the video again. Even though I suggest that you watch the lecture as you're doing the assignment, also remember you need to take careful notes because, well, for two reasons. First of all, you're going to have those same issues come up in subsequent lectures and subsequent assignments, and I may not talk about those in subsequent lectures. I'm assuming that you have all that knowledge that we've already covered, so I may not go over that particular issue again. So you'll want to have that in your notes so you can check that off. Okay, Gruber didn't talk about font in this lecture, but she's talked about font in the last lecture, so I know what font I need to use. Let me make sure I'm using the right font. That might be an approach here. Another reason you want careful notes is that you're going to have a midterm and a final examination on this material. And so, preparing your assignments, you get, obviously it's an open note situation, so you can watch the video as you're doing the assignment, but when you're taking the test, you're not going to have access to your notes, you're not going to have access to the videos. So you'll have to remember, what's that font we're supposed to use in class? You won't be able to say, oh, I can't remember what it is, let me go back and watch the video. You won't have access to it at that point. So you'll need to have studied that information. And how are you going to study it? We'll have it in your notes. So please keep those issues in mind as you are preparing your assignments. Watch the lecture as you're preparing your documents. Regularly pause the lecture to take notes and also to work on your document. Okay, so let's go back to our modules. So after you complete your document assignment, you're going to do it in Word, as a Word document. The reason that we require that you use Word is that is what is used in the legal profession. That is what 97% of attorneys use. It's the standard. And so to be highly marketable as a paralegal or really any legal professional today, you need to have pretty strong Word skills. So while this is not a course in how to maneuver in Word, those are definitely skills that if you don't already have, you need to work on. If you don't have strong Word skills now, no worries. There's a ton of resources out there, many of them being free, that you can use in order to become very conversant in Word. I have some books that I recommend that you consider purchasing if you want an inexpensive book. But you know what? You can go on YouTube and you can Google things and find out virtually anything you need to know about Word just by using those tools. Now you may be thinking, okay, well I see how I need Word, but how do I get Word? Well, of course, many people have access to Word either on their home computer or at work. If you do, that's awesome, wonderful. But don't worry if you don't, because you are a student at Collin, you have access to our computer labs, and all of the computers in our computer labs have Word. So you can definitely use it there even if you don't have access anywhere else. We'll talk more about the computer labs later on. Sometimes students say, well, I don't have Word at home, so what I'll do is I'll work on it at home, and then I will kind of polish it up by converting it to Word once I get to the computer lab. You certainly can do that, but you have to be really careful because sometimes when you transition the document, you lose some of your formatting. You have to be careful to go back and really go over it in a very detailed way to make sure you're catching all the problems. That's certainly one approach, though, that can work. It just requires a lot of attention to detail to be successful at that. So you've submitted your document in Word format. Let me just pause and talk about, well, what if I submit it in a PDF? Well, the first thing to say is Canvas won't accept it. So you won't be successful at submitting your assignment if you have anything other than a, let me just write this up here. You can see what I'm talking about. So it needs to be in Doc or Doc X format. Those are the two that are acceptable. Anything else Canvas will reject. So a PDF isn't going to help you one little bit. You can have the most perfect document prepared in PDF and you won't be able to submit it. So you won't get any points. I mean, you'll have the experience of preparing the assignment, which is positive, and I'll be glad to give you comments about your assignment, but you won't get a grade for that particular assignment. So don't do it. Always be sure to submit it in Doc or DocX. Any other format, ODT, Word Perfect, all the other things I will not, again, Canvas won't accept, and I won't grade them. I'll be happy to give you comments if I can actually open the document, but that won't help you in terms of your grade in the course. So don't use those tools. And again, the reason that I restrict it in that way is actually, there's three reasons. I mean, the first and probably the most important is that this is what is used in the legal business, so you need to become familiar with it in order to be highly marketable. The second reason is that I can see all of the formatting that you do. I don't just look at your document, I also look at how you created your document. It's possible that you can have a beautiful document, but you didn't format it the way that I instructed you to in the lecture. And so you will lose points even if it, quote unquote, looks perfect. You have to not just create the appearance, you have to have the internal structure there that's correct. And the way that I can see that structure best is if you have it in Word format. The third reason is that courts require things in certain formats, and so it's a good practice to get involved with understanding that, you know what, this is the deal and this is how I need to work on documents. And so I don't try to have arbitrary rules, but sometimes it's not a bad idea in this particular field to have somewhat arbitrary rules, because that's the real world. That's what the legal profession is like. You will routinely encounter judges, unfortunately, who have very specific requirements that may not make a lot of sense, and guess what? You have to comply. So think about it in those terms if that's helpful for you. And that's one thing we do throughout, well, hopefully throughout the whole program, but especially in this course, is kind of get you prepared for the real world of what it's like to be a paralegal who's preparing lots of documents. And so to the extent that we can, we're trying to get you to that point where you're comfortable doing these things, you're able to follow through in all the things that you need to perform. Sometimes students will say to me, but you know what, you have some pretty tough rules. You know, you don't accept late work. You require documents in certain formats. You are very detail oriented in terms of what you take points off for. That doesn't feel very fair. I'm still learning. I appreciate that. And I completely understand that there are going to be times that you're going to lose some points, even though you worked hard on the document. Maybe it's that you didn't understand one of the instructions, or maybe it's that you forgot a particular fact. You were doing your best, just, you know, human error happens. Um, Everybody is going to lose some points sometimes. I've never had a student who's gotten 100 on every test and gotten a perfect on every assignment. In fact, it's rare that I have students who get perfects on any particular assignment. I mean, it happens, but it's not a routine thing. So don't worry excessively about, oh, I missed a point here, I missed a point there. That's part of that learning experience. When you miss a point, stop and say, okay, wish I hadn't missed the point, but what did I do wrong? Let me learn from that and make sure I don't do it next time. If you get in the habit of not making the same mistake twice, you will do really, really, really well in this course. So don't worry about making that mistake the first time. That's understandable. That's learning. The second time, when you've seen that you've gotten a deduction, when you see the comments that I provide and you continue to make the mistake, that's when I would encourage you to pause and say, wait a second, let me go back, let me make sure, let me look at all of my comments from my previous submissions so that I don't repeat those mistakes. Because that's where students are less successful. When they continue to make the same errors again and again, they're giving up points that they could have earned. Don't let that be you. Let that be someone else in the class, not you. If you make a mistake only once, you are going to be very successful in the course. The checklist here, let me just kind of go through. So we've talked about the document assignments after you submit it in Word format. Another thing to talk about is sometimes students have problems submitting documents on Canvas. In order to facilitate learning about how to do that, I have a practice assignment. You don't have to do this, but many students find it helpful to do the practice assignment. And this is it. Let me find it here. Mm. I'm not seeing it here. Okay, I will post that for you. But there will be an opportunity for you to practice posting something on Canvas. And if you have some technical difficulty, it might be with your computer, it might be with Canvas, it might be some way that your computer and Canvas don't get along. And so it gives you the opportunity to make sure before you're actually getting ready to post an assignment that you can successfully do it. And then if you have a problem, you're able to brainstorm. It's a practice assignment because it doesn't count for a real grade. What I'll do is if you are completely successful in posting what you did, I will give you a 1. If you were completely unsuccessful, I'll give you a 0. And if you were kind of successful but kind of not, I'll give you a 0.5. For example, you post something that's not in Word format, but you post a PDF or something along those lines. So I'm trying to give you feedback about your level of success. It doesn't count as a real grade, so please don't worry about it. If you choose not to participate, that's fine. An alternative that you can do is you can post an assignment early, because once you post an assignment, you can unpost it and repost something else later on. So you can attempt to make sure you can get your document posted just to experiment with it. When you see it successfully posted, you know how to do it then, and then you can go on and actually do the work that you need to have. So I don't accept assignments via email. That's why we have Canvas. I get, and I'm not exaggerating, over 100 emails a day. And so for me to keep track of all of the emails that I get and find in that haystack student submissions, it is a pretty crazy system. And I'm very concerned that I'm going to mislay one of your very important assignments. So I don't accept them via email. And that's why it's a good idea, again, for you to go ahead and submit the assignments early. So if Canvas isn't working for you on Sunday, no worries. You got a whole nother week to work on it. You can try to submit it on Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday. But if you're working to submit it that day that it's due and it's not working, you may have spent 5 hours on the assignment and you're not going to be able to get credit for it. So please, please be kind to yourself and be familiar with Canvas so that, and give yourself that breathing time. So I do not accept email submissions. Once you have submitted your document assignment, and in fact the deadline has passed, then I will post 3 documents for you. The first will be your grade for the assignment. If it's a document assignment, typically it will be out of 30 points. And I will take either a 1-point deduction or a half-point deduction for most errors. There are some serious errors I sometimes take more than a point, but usually it's 1 or half a point that I do for each error. And so you start out with 30, and then as you make errors, that number drops from that point. And so you'll see your grade, let's say, and you got a 28. Well, that means you lost 2 points. And then you'll click on the comments section within the grades function, and I will list to you the points that you lost. I will also, so I might say you missed point, or you made error 17 or an error 36. And so you'll be able, and I'll explain in a second where you'll find those errors. So you'll write down those numbers and then you'll cross-reference it to the document that lists those error codes. Also in the comment section, I list things that I did not take a deduction for but that are also incorrect. Especially at the beginning of the semester, I don't take a deduction for every single error students make. I do that because I know I'm throwing a lot of information at you, and I just want to give you an opportunity to kind of master it. As we get later in the semester, those errors that I didn't take off for, I'm just going to start taking off for. So always assume that an error is going to result in a deduction. Be pleasantly surprised when it doesn't, but as the semester progresses, that's going to be fewer and fewer occasions. So you'll see in your grade section the number grade that you get, but much more important are the comments. The reason that the comments are so important is that when you look at those comments, you get to say, oh, gee, I used the wrong font. And then you're going to put that in your notes in your folder or your binder for this particular class. And then when you do the next assignment, you'll have this checklist. Okay, last time I used the wrong font, I now know this time to check my font and to check, all the different parts of the document to make sure I have the right font. And so those comments are what's going to help you avoid creating the same error more than once. And that's probably the most important tip I can give you for being successful in this class. So when you get the document assignment graded, you'll look at your grade in the comments. That's tool 1. Tool 2 will be the announcement. I will post an announcement. Let me just show you where those are. I'm going to go over here to announcements. I will post an announcement right here listing, as you can see, we have lots over the course of the semester, listing the, for example, grades for the email assignment are due. And I oftentimes give information about what was the highest grade, what was the biggest problem, those types of things. And then you will, once you read the email, and you'll get this email in 2 ways. You'll see it in the announcement sections, but it will also be sent to your Cougar Mail address. So either way that you want to look at it is fine. Then you go to modules, and you'll see that there will be a key under the assignment. It'll be right under the assignment, and it will be available. That won't be available at first. Let me show you what I mean by this. For example, when you see, well, actually I have it here. I have a teacher comments for email assignment. When you actually go in and look at this, you won't be able to see this because obviously I cover up the comments so that you'll be able to do the assignment independently. And then finally, I have an example of how an assignment could have looked. In virtually all these cases, there are differing ways of completing the assignment. So there's not just one perfect answer, but this is one successful way of doing it. So you might want to go through that carefully and see, okay, I see how that would have been better, all of those things. So really doing a post-mortem on your assignment after you've submitted it and you've gotten the feedback is what prepares you to be even more successful for the next time. So that's a really, really important part of getting these assignments done. Okay. Let's talk about grammar assignments. So we have a document assignment in virtually every module. We only have a grammar assignment about, I think it's just for every odd numbered module. So, about 8 or so of those modules. Here we have our first one, which is module 1, and that's the I call them grammar proofreading assignments because they relate to grammar issues as well as proofreading issues. I have a little video for you to watch, and it explains how to format your documents. The important things to remember with formatting are, here we go, is let's say that this was a sentence in the document that you're supposed to revise, and you want to add the word awesome here. Whenever you add a word, you need to put it in bold and you need to put it in red, okay? If you want to remove a word like the word legal, you need to do strike through font, which is right here. So when you do your editing of your proofreading documents, there should be lots of bold red work, and there ought to be lots of words struck through. When you are, let's say I wanted to get rid of this period after the word law, you don't just strike through a period, because you can see that's really hard for me to read. So you actually strike through the word in front of it too. And then let's say you want to keep the word law, then you're going to retype the word law, and you're going, since you're adding it, you're going to put it in red and bold. That's the way to maximize your points, because you want to make it super easy for me to see that you've made the necessary changes. If you don't make it super easy, you might be giving up some points. So it's really in your best interest to make sure that you follow those. So remember to watch that video, especially for the first submission, but probably for the first 2 or 3, you're going to want to remember that. Put changes in red and bold if we're adding, and strike through if we're removing. Another thing to remember about the assignment is you don't want to make any more changes than you have to. So when you make a change, you ought to stop and think, What's the rule that requires that I make this change? Because we're really just fixing grammar and typo errors. We're not rewriting the documents. You'll probably find that a lot of the documents you're working with on these assignments, they're not necessarily that well written. My suggestion is to think of it this way. Imagine that your boss isn't a really good writer. He or she's asked you to revise his or her work. And while he or she is not a particularly good writer, he or she's pretty sensitive about it. And so you're thinking to yourself, oh gosh, I know I'm going to have to make some changes because it's not really that good, but I want to make as few as possible so he gets or she gets less angry about it. And that's how you ought to approach it. So if you're adding a comma, you ought to think to yourself, well, what's the Aspen rule that requires a comma here? If you're taking a comma away, look it up to make sure you have the rule right. Don't just rewrite it because, oh, I think it sounds better this way. Have a reason. Because if you rewrite stuff that didn't need to be rewritten, you may well be throwing points away. And I don't want that to happen. So err on the side of less rather than more. So let's go back to, so here's the instructional video. Here is the assignment instruction. So we have the words in writing, and I'm just going to put this up here so you can see it. You can see I kind of go through how to edit things, just what I was talking about before. I actually have a typo here, bad for me. There we go. So again, for the first go through, definitely look at these two carefully. And here's our first assignment. This is the document that you'll be revising. Here are some pieces of advice I have for you. The first one is that you're going to want to turn on this paragraphs, this backwards P here, because you get to see all of the formatting stuff when I do this. If I make this go away, you can see all of those signs go away. So you're going to put this on here. Another good tip, depending upon the version of Word that you're using, is that Word can help you out. If you go back to File here, and then you go down to Options, and then you go to Display, I'm sorry, proofreading is what I proofing. Word will help you with grammar and more. And will flag a lot of problems that are problems. And you can see here, let me just review. You can see it will give you lots of suggestions. Word is reliable about 80% of the time. In other words, it will be right more often than it's wrong, but it will be wrong pretty often. And so when Word tells you, hey, this is a problem, listen to it, but listen to it with a little bit of skepticism, because there will be times where Word is just wrong. Also, don't get too dependent upon Word, because Word will by no means catch every error. So use Word as a tool to help you be successful. Another strategy is to blow up the font. I like to use 20-point font when I'm doing this. So I've turned on the paragraph sign. I've made sure that I check review my things. I put this up to 20, and then I go through. It's a little easier for me to see. Another strategy is to read it out loud. And I like to not only read it out loud, but I like to read it out loud with kind of an animated voice, like this. This is going to sound silly. I apologize in the future. Mr. Green couldn't prove foreseeability because Mr. Smith didn't have any knowledge of Mr. Smith's employee being dangerous or harmful. So by exaggerating the reading, I can sometimes catch errors that I would not have otherwise caught. Reading aloud really helps you see when I've doubled a word that I shouldn't have doubled or something along those lines. So those are some good hints to be successful in the proofreading. Proofreading grades work a little bit differently than the document grades. Let me go back to the modules. The first thing is that there's only 20 points for the proofreading assignments. Here we go. So you can see when you see a 20-point below, that means that it's a grammar proofreading assignment. The other difference is that there is the opportunity for lots of extra credit. Most of the grammar proofreading assignments have at least 3 points of extra credit available, sometimes 7 or 8 points of extra credit. And virtually every assignment, I will have students who get more than 20 points. I'll also have students who get less than 10 points. So there's a lot of variation in how people perform on these assignments. So what you want to do is, and so you say, how do you earn extra points? Well, especially early in the semester, when we're covering this first module, the only thing that you're responsible for knowing are the punctuation things that we covered up here in these pages, right? And so, but the document that I have in this assignment have errors other than punctuation errors. So let's say you happen to know how to identify the passive voice. And so you're able to identify it and correct it. Well, that's not a punctuation issue. So your ability to catch that error and to correct it is going to be an extra credit point. So that's how you earn extra credit points. But you don't have to. So let's say this stuff isn't maybe your strong suit and you're learning these ideas as we go through it. No worries. If you learn the material in this particular module and you only apply the information in this module or in the ones we've already covered, then you should be able to get all 20 points in theory. I mean, you might miss 1 or 2. We're all human, right? But you should do very, very well on the assignments. Some students struggle with these assignments. They will have a lower points than they might be satisfied with. Please come and see me. Students who come to see me get a great deal of support on both the document assignments and the grammar proofreading assignments. We will work together. And it is so common for me to have a student who comes to see me and says, you know, maybe we spend 10 minutes together, maybe we spend 2 hours, but whatever we need is what we spend. And then the student, a light bulb goes off, oh, I get it. I didn't even understand, but now I do. And so that's a very encouraging moment for us. And so don't be shy, especially after you've had a disappointing grade, especially when it's a situation where you tried your hardest. You weren't doing it at the last minute, but you really invested a lot and it still just wasn't clicking for you. No worries. A bad single grade is not a big deal. If you have a bad grade and that motivates you to really master the material by coming to see me, that's good news, because one bad grade that motivates you to make the necessary changes is going to result in an overall excellent grade for you. So after you submit the assignment, again, you also submit it through a Word document, you will get a similar comment. You'll get a grade in your grade in Canvas, and you also get comments. The comments are a little different in that unlike with the document assignments where you start with 30 points and I deduct points for every error, for the grammar proofreading assignments, you start at 0 and you get a point for every error that you identify and correct. And so I list all the points that you earned. I will also in the comment section list things that you missed or changed that you shouldn't have. Usually those don't result, especially in the beginning of the semester, in a point deduction, but it's a learning moment, so hopefully next time you won't make that error. So I will post the key, which will show you an example of how you could have successfully completed the assignment. And then I also have a lecture for each one of these. These are pretty long lectures, and so if you did well on the assignment, you probably don't need to watch the lecture. But if you struggled on it, especially if you don't have the ability to come to see me in a particular week, watch the lecture, because I go through line by line how I would recommend you do the assignment. I tell you, oh, this is why I've identified this as a problem, this is how I fix it, and I actually do the assignment online and talk you through it. Okay, so that is the document assignment. Okay, so now we're going to talk, and we also have the orientation quiz. This is not for a grade, but this is to make sure that you have the tools that you need to be successful in the course. You can take this quiz more than one time, but if you find yourself getting less than a 100 or certainly less than a 90, please contact me so we can figure out how I can support you and help you being successful in the class. Now we have the orientation material. So far we've had the lectures, the things that you need to read for this particular module, the assignments, the orientation materials, which is where we are now. In this section, these are the tools that you're going to want to refer to throughout the semester to help you. Let's say you forget how to do this or what the policy is on this. Most of that material you're going to find right here. You can rewatch this lecture, but you may not have 2 or 3 extra hours to do. And so these are smart ways of doing this. If you email me and I've covered in the orientation material, I will send you a very nice note saying, thank you for your email. I believe that I've covered that in the orientation materials. You know, if you need some support to find those materials, please feel free to come by my office hours. Of course, if you ask a question that I didn't cover in the orientation materials, I will be delighted to answer that question. But I try not to answer questions. I mean, I answer them in multiple places within this orientation material, but I try not to answer questions that I've covered in the orientation material. Now, I know that can be frustrating for students, but the reason that I do it is I think a sound one, and that is in your practice lives. Judges don't tell us 12 different times how to go about doing something. The rules that we have to follow, the Texas Rules of Civil Procedure, the Federal Civil Procedure, all of those rules, you have to find the answer, and it's not always obvious where they are, and there's many times a significant amount of calculation that goes into it. And so what I'm trying to do is help you develop those skills of independence and problem solving and critical reading so that when it counts, when you're dealing with real clients who are going to have negative impact if you don't get that right, you have been empowered and you've developed those skills. So I'm not holding the ball from you because I want to be mean, but because I want you to be successful, and I want you to maybe do a little bit of sweating here. I can't remember what the rule is on that. And I'll say, gotcha. It's in the orientation. Good luck. If you've looked a lot and you can't find it, come see me and we'll find it together. So keep that in mind. Look before you send that email. I would very much appreciate that. And here are some tools we have. This PowerPoint, we'll talk about this later. The FAQ, we'll talk about this later. We'll also talk about the Collin College Paralegal Association. I have some information about participating in the discussion board, so if you forget how to do that, it's right here. I again have those instructions for the grammar proofreading assignments, that short little video here. And then this last one is the Cougar Mail forwarding email address procedure. You don't have to do this at all. Some students don't like to have to manage their personal email account and their Cougar Mail account. And so there is a way to get all of your Cougar Mail sent to your personal email. This is information about that. If that's helpful for you, great. You don't have to by any means. Even if you choose to forward your Cougar Mail email to your real email address, you still have to correspond with me through your Cougar Mail. So you'll still need to go into it when you're sending me an email. I'm not supposed to respond to emails that are not through Cougar Mail from students. So keep that in mind. I would ask for your help making sure that you're sending it through Cougar Mail. We will talk more about the syllabus in a little bit. I have some other resources for you about the course. And now we have some tools that you'll use throughout the semester. Sometimes I have students who kind of want a cheat sheet of what are the things I need to know about documents. These are some tools along those lines. Having said that, there's really too many details to cover in these kind of cheat sheets. Plus, part of the role that you have is to organize your own cheat sheets, to take your notes from all the lectures and to distill them in some tool that you can go through and have a checklist. Okay, have I used the right font? Have I indented every paragraph? Have I indented this? And you'll have this checklist. That's what you're preparing as you go through the course of the semester so that you'll know that everything is in good shape. If I prepare that for you, I'm taking away that opportunity for you to grow professionally. And so I have some of the stuff here, maybe to give you some hints as to where you would get started on preparing your own tools. So if you're stuck on something, these might be some good places to look. And again, this is still part of that Module 1, the orientation module. Let's go down here to Module 2 and I'll look this over just for a second. You can see modules after Module 1 aren't quite as long. Again, we'll start with the PowerPoint and then the lecture, and then there will be some readings. This one seems to be a little bit longer, but keep in mind most of these readings are really, really short. Maybe a page, maybe 2 pages. And we can see the grammar section is quite short. There's only 4 pages here. So this amount of reading is going to be very modest in virtually every module that we have. Here I have the practice assignment. I do have it after all. Okay, so here is how to work on your practice assignment. It's not for a grade. You don't have to do it, but it can be a good way to check to make sure you're able to post successfully on Canvas. And then we have our discussion board. You can tell it's a discussion board because it says 10 points. And then we have the email assignment, which is 30 points. We don't have a grammar assignment because this is an even module. This is module 2. Obviously, you won't have my comments or the example of the successful submission that you'll be able to see when the semester begins, but they will be available after you've submitted your assignment and everyone else has. So now let me take you to the end of this, because at the very end, if you've gone through all 15 modules, at the very end is some sample documents. This is a really important file for you to work with, and I want to make some points about this. First of all, please bookmark that it is after Module 15. Most semesters I get a student sending me a note saying, I can't find sample documents, or it's obvious from their submission that they weren't able to find the sample documents. And it's simply because they forgot to scroll down to the end. Don't be that person. I will check. If you send me a note saying I can't find the sample documents, and I'll send you a note saying to make sure that I do have it turned on, because I'm not infallible by any means. But once I check that it's turned on, I'll send you a note saying it's there. Good luck finding it. You may want to review the orientation material. If you still can't find it, come see me, and I'll be glad to help at that point. A little bit of looking around can be really helpful in getting familiar with that. That's, again, one of the reasons I encourage you to explore the website. So let me talk a little bit about the sample documents. Some of these sample documents are intentionally flawed. There's problems with some of these documents. And the reason that I do that is because that's real world. Most of the time, it's very common for a paralegal or an attorney, when he or she is working on a document, to have a document that is kind of similar to what he or she needs, but not perfect. For example, the facts of the case might be somewhat different. Maybe you're writing up a divorce petition for a couple who don't have any children. The only model you have is for a divorce petition with children. You're going to have to change it. It doesn't mean that that model that you're working from isn't really useful, but it's not perfect. Or you might have a divorce petition with children, but it was filed in a different jurisdiction. You're going to have to make some changes. And so knowing how to change a model to fit your particular circumstances is a tremendously important skill. In fact, I would say that's the single most important skill that you're going to be working on in this course. If all it was making sure you have the right font and following all that kind of stuff, this really wouldn't be a college level course. So this is where the rubber hits the road, so to speak. When you look at these samples, don't assume, gee whiz, that looks weird, but that must be what I'm supposed to do. No, look at these samples with a critical eye. Is it from a different jurisdiction? Well, maybe they do things differently there. I need to make this look like a Texas jurisdiction. Or, gosh, I didn't know that we had that fact in our case. Well, since we don't have that fact in our case, I probably ought to remove it. Whatever the circumstances are, be critical about looking at those models. You will lose points if you keep things from the sample documents that don't belong in it. And again, if you aren't sure about whether something stays or goes, feel free to come by my office hours, and we'll sit together and work through the issues, and I'll explain why it stays or why it goes. And if it needs to go, we'll talk about how to change it so it works better. Below the sample documents, we have web links. I have this in I think all of my courses. These are some helpful links that you might find useful for this course as well as other courses. Some really helpful tools are going to be the writing and grammar aids, but I do have a disclaimer here. As we'll see throughout the course, grammar is in some sense, it's a cut and dried subject, but there are areas of grammar that differing opinions control. The legal industry is a very conservative industry, very interested in being traditional. Many of these websites are having a more informal set of grammar rules. So if you see, Aspen says do it this way, but Purdue says you can do it this other way, follow Aspen. Or if my lecture says do it A and UNC says do it B, do it A. So if you see a conflict between what I'm saying or what Aspen is saying, follow what I'm saying and what Aspen is saying versus these websites. We also have some paralegal resources here that can be useful in this course and other courses. So those are our web links. You probably won't officially need those for the course, but it's always good to have additional resources. So now I'm going to go back up here to our orientation module, and I'm going to go to under orientation materials to join Collin College Paralegal Association. This is our first extra credit opportunity, and so I hope that you'll take advantage of it. I will ask that you create a LinkedIn profile for yourself and that you join the Collin College Paralegal Association. That is a LinkedIn group. Let me go into LinkedIn right now. LinkedIn is spelled just like LinkedIn. No spaces or periods, linkedin.com. And sign in here. My password's automatically in there, so that's why that's already there. And it takes me to my page here. Lots of different people that I know. As you can see, I have lots of connections. I'm going to look at my profile here for just a second. I'm going to view my profile. And here we can see all of the stuff that I say about myself. And actually, let me look at this in a different way. Let's see, more education. Here, here. You can see it. There's more information about recommendations and things like that. So in order to earn this extra credit, you have to set up a profile. It needs to be a fairly robust profile, listing, your education, your career, and things like that. And then you'll go to type in Collin College Paralegal Association. Click on this. I'm a member of the group, so it's going to take me directly into here. You can see we have 361 members. But if you aren't a member, it'll say, hey, this is a closed group. You have to ask to join. And so you ask to join. I will manage the group and get you to be a member of the group. If for some reason you can't find the group or you can't figure out how to ask to join, an alternative approach is to link with me. Once you have your account set up, then you can link with me. So let me just give an example of how you might do that. Let me just go back here. So I'm just going to randomly type in somebody's name. We'll go with Bob Smith. Okay, so here we have Bob Smith. I don't know Bob Smith. He's probably an awesome guy. If I wanted to connect with him, I just click on connect. I'm not going to because I don't know him, but if I click on this, then Bob Smith would get an email from me saying, hey, Bob, I'd like to link with you. And Bob would then decide whether he wanted to link with me or not. So what you would do is you would type in my name, Cynthia Groover, into this field. And obviously I'm Cynthia Groover, so this isn't really going to work. So there's not going to be a box, but since you're not me, you're going to be able to see a box that says connect with me. And once you hit this box, then I'll get the email, and of course I'll connect with you because I will pull up your profile if I don't already know you and see, Sally is a student at Collin College studying paralegal things, and so therefore I will want to link with her. And then you can send me an email once we're linked. We can send it through LinkedIn and say, hey, we're linked. Can you send me an invitation to College Paralegal Association? I'll send you an invitation, and that will get you to be a member of the group. So once you have your profile established and you've joined the Collin College Paralegal Association, you will get extra credit for that. And I will post an assignment about that for you. You don't have to do it. It's completely your choice whether to do it. But let me talk about the reasons that you might want to do it. Okay. So one of the big things is that we post lots of job leads here. This is our job board. And so if you are interested in finding a position through the college, a legal position, then this is the way to go about finding it. Now, we post these jobs pretty frequently, but there is no email that is pushed out to you. You have to visit this site. And so, you know, if you're looking for a job, I would encourage you to visit. We're not posting jobs most days, but there have been days where I posted, you know, 3 or 4 in a particular day. And so, you know, don't sit by your screen constantly refreshing, thinking I'm about to post something. But visiting every other day or something along those lines may be a good approach if you're interested in that. But we also post other things too. Even if you are happy in your current employment situation, I sometimes post information about extra credit. I sometimes post just general interesting legal information. I'll post information about the program and things like that. I also encourage students to post. Once you're a member, you are able to post all that you want, assuming it's nothing offensive or anything along those lines. I don't really want to be the only person posting. When you see something, whether you like it or not, go ahead. I mean, whether you're going to uh, 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 apply for the job or not, if you will like it, that's really important for us to have that, because once it's liked, I can see, oh, it's being seen by people. It's not unusual for me to get calls from employers saying, hey, you posted that job lead a week ago and we haven't gotten a single candidate in. And so then I go and I look, oh, wait a second, nobody's liked it, which probably means nobody's seen it. So be sure to like it. Liking it doesn't mean that you like the job or that you're planning on applying for it. It's just the way that I'm able to see, yes, people are seeing this. People are going ahead and accessing it. If nobody is coming to the board to look at the things I'm posting, obviously that means that it's probably not a very successful board, and so I won't invest as much time in developing it under those circumstances. And I want it to be successful, so please help me by visiting regularly. Another reason that we encourage you to use LinkedIn and use this group is that LinkedIn is the professional networking tool. It is what people in the legal industry and virtually all other industries in the United States use for networking purposes. It's the gold standard. And so when you apply for a job, somebody in a law firm is going to look at you up in LinkedIn. When they see you don't have a profile, I mean, it's not the kiss of death or anything, but it's not as impressive as if you'd had a great profile here. And so you are putting yourself in a better position if you have that nice profile. Now, of course, I've been in the legal industry for lots and lots of years, but a week doesn't go by that I don't get some job leads. People contacting me saying, hey, I see that you have had XYZ experience and we're looking for that. And so even though I'm not actively seeking a job, I will get these passive inquiries all the time. And you will eventually too. So you don't have to do nearly as much work once you have an effective LinkedIn profile. It will do the work of finding a good job for you in many, many cases. So that's why you want to be a member of LinkedIn. Why do you want to be a member of the Collin College Paralegal Association? Well, again, you're going to get good information about job leads and things like that. Another advantage is that Collin College, because we are an ABA approved program, has to keep contact with our graduates. And the way that we do this is primarily through the College Paralegal Association. So we don't want to have to stalk you. We don't want to have to bother you by sending you emails. Hey, where do you work now? What are you doing now? We can just go to LinkedIn, pull up your facts, and not even trouble you with an email. It makes your life easier. It makes our lives easier. And so that's one of the advantages to using this program in terms of our compliance with the ABA. And obviously, we all have an interest in making sure that our ABA approval, that we remain in good standing. And so any way that helps us accomplish that is a win-win for us. So I hope that you'll seriously consider establishing a LinkedIn profile and join the College Paralegal Association. Whether you want the extra credit or not, it's a good thing for you professionally, in my opinion. Okay, so that's our discussion about LinkedIn. And again, if you have questions about that, here's some information about it. And of course, if you have any difficulties accessing LinkedIn, come see me and I'll be happy to set you up. You and I can do it together. Okay, so let me go back to modules here. Let's talk about tests. We have 2 tests over the course of the semester. One is a midterm, one is a final examination. You may be thinking, well, how am I going to do a test if this is an online course? Good question. You'll take the test, or the vast majority of the students in this class will take the test through one of our testing centers. You can do it on the Central Park campus in McKinney, the Spring Creek campus in Plano, or the Frisco campus, the Preston Ridge campus. Any of those 3 are fine to take the test. It will be an online test, so you won't need a Scantron or a pencil or anything like that. You'll just show up with your student ID and take the midterm or the final examination. But you may be thinking to yourself, well, Jules, I'd like to take the test from home. And that's fine if you would like to, but I want to raise a couple of caveats. First of all, there are some expenses associated with that. The Collin College uses a remote proctoring service called ProctorU. You'll get more information about this in the syllabus. ProctorU is a fee-based service. It's not that expensive, but it's going to cost anywhere from say $15 to $40. Those are kind of ballpark numbers, depending upon how long you take to take the test. These 2 tests are not super quick tests, so you'll probably be, above the $15 point. So if the reason that you're thinking about using the remote proctoring is so that maybe you can save some gas money or save some babysitter money, you probably will find that the cost of the ProctorU service is greater than whatever money you're saving. Of course, that's your decision to make. Another thing to consider about ProctorU is that you need to have a pretty up-to-date computer at your home because it has to be a fairly technically sophisticated computer. You're going to need a webcam, you're going to need a variety of other features. And so keep that in mind as you are considering. There is a website to visit that will check to make sure your computer is able to handle the technology. The third thing to keep in mind is that I need advance notice. The day that the test, whether it be the midterm or the final exam, is released, I need notice 10 days before that in order to prepare the test for ProctorU. The test that I prepare for students who are taking the test in the testing center is formatted differently than what I need to use for ProctorU, and so I need some advance notice and I need to communicate with you about the particular ProctorU requirements, what needs to happen with respect to that. I'm happy to do so. It's no problem, but it does take some time on my part and some preparation. So be sure to calendar that. And again, if you're sure that you're going to want to take it, you can go ahead and contact me right away. Just be sure that you do it before the 10 days. And then we can talk more about it. So either way, taking the test at the testing center or ProctorU. You can't take the test unproctored. The test is password protected. The people in the testing center will have the password. So that's how that works. Let me pause and talk about, this is a little bit off topic, but I don't want to forget this, is that there is a whole grades section here. So I'm going to click on grades. And you can see here is the grades for this particular student, this mythical student. And you can see that it gives all kinds of data about the student. Well, all of this information, this is out of the total number of points. Let's say this were a 20, and this were a 17, and this were a 27, et cetera, et cetera. Then you'd be able to see how you're doing the course. All of this information is going to be 100% accurate in this score column. But what's not going to be accurate is all of this information. So please don't even look down here. If I could turn it off, I would. I get so many questions on this, and I know it's so frustrating for students because the way that I calculate grades, the equation that I use is more complicated, more complex than Canvas can be programmed for. And so what Canvas is telling you that your grade may be is not usually, it's rarely going to be exactly correct. It's not going to be wildly off. I mean, if Canvas is showing you're getting an A, you're not failing. Or if Canvas is saying you're failing, you're probably not getting an A. But it can be off by 1 or 2 letter grades. And so please don't pay attention to this. Instead, look at all of your grades in this column and use the equation in the syllabus. So please keep those things in mind. I'll be happy to work with you in calculating your grade. Just come see me and we'll sit down and we'll crunch the numbers together to see where you are at this point, depending upon what your goals are, what you need to accomplish in the remaining assignments and tests to be successful. Okay. So that's my caveat about that. And that's true really if you're in any of my other classes, that's also going to be true for you in terms of Canvas's accuracy. So now let's go to the syllabus. So I'm going to the semester specific information is still in module 1 and we have the syllabus here. I've actually already downloaded the syllabus, so I'm just going to open it up. Here we go. Okay, here we go. Let me make this a little bit. We're going to go through some high points or highlights of the syllabus. Obviously, you're going to want to read your syllabus really carefully. It's the document that tells you how the course is run, and so it really merits a lot of very serious attention. It's very common for students to ask me questions that are directly covered in the syllabus. And so before you call me, if it's something that could be covered in the syllabus, be sure to check that. The first page of the syllabus doesn't have information or very much information that's probably going to be of great interest to students, except for the drop date. Okay, so this is the date for this particular semester that you can withdraw without getting the approval of anyone else. I recommend that you calendar that date on your in your day planner, whatever planner that you use. This will be the same date for any 16-week course or for any all summer course if this is a summer semester. It's good to have that in your calendar, so if hey, maybe you win the lottery and you've decided you're going to move to the south of France, you're not going to complete this course, well, you'll know when you need to withdraw. And then here's information about me. It shows you where my office is located. My office is in the library building on the PRC campus in Frisco, and my room is 232 in that particular building. And then this gives you my office hours. Obviously, my office hours vary from semester to semester, so you'll want to check the particular office hours for your particular semester. Many times I will have virtual office hours included in my office hours, and these are called Zoom office hours. What I'm doing now is actually doing a Zoom presentation. It doesn't look like a Zoom to you because I've tape recorded it, but that's what it is. Zoom is a really tremendously powerful, awesome tool. I love it, love it, love it. And it is designed to make it really easy for students and faculty to connect, and also other people to connect. So let's assume, let me just make this yellow go away. So let's assume that I wanted to, let's say I'm a student, I wanted to visit office hours, and I am at my PC or at my Android phone. Well, I'm going to copy this address here. I'm going to go over here. open this up, plop this down, paste it, enter it, and guess what? I'm going to go directly into, I'm not going to do it right now, but I'm going to go directly into the room. It's as easy as that. You will have to download an app, but it takes no time at all. It's completely safe. From the time that you, sorry, here we go. From the time that you cut and paste this into your browser and you and I are talking, would probably be less than 2 minutes, certainly less than 5 minutes. So it's a very, very easy tool to use, but it's not just Android and PCs. You can use this with Macs, iPhones. You can even call. Obviously, if you call on a traditional telephone, you're not going to be able to see what I'm showing you or what I could show you. But you know, we can definitely talk on the phone about whatever you'd like to talk about. So those are my office hours for this particular semester. Just be sure to check for whatever semester we might be working on. Let me talk a little bit about emails. My email address is my first initial and my last name @collin.edu. You should not put in Cougar Mail because faculty don't have that in their email address. Canvas has a tool that I do not use, and so let me show you. Canvas has this tool right here, Inbox. Please don't use that to correspond with me because I don't check it. I want to have all of my student correspondence in my Collin email folder so I can arrange it and find it. If I have to look in multiple places, that's not efficient for me. And so if you send me an inbox note through Canvas, I won't see it. And so don't do it. Send me an email to cgroover@collin.edu. Another thing to talk about is relating to emails is that I usually turn email responses in within 1 business day. It's usually, I'm almost compulsive on my email. I respond almost before you hit the send button a lot of the times. But I do want to give you some caveats about that. I spend most of my weekends away from the city in a fairly remote location that does not have reliable cell phone service, does not have reliable internet service. So from say 4 or 5 o'clock on Friday through Saturday and Sunday, I am pretty much incommunicado. I'm not going to get your emails and I'm not going to be able to correspond with you. So you can send me emails during that time, but just understand that it's very unlikely that I'll be able to respond until Monday. So keep that in mind. Another thing to keep in mind is that Tuesdays and Thursdays are my big class days. I have several of my classes are usually scheduled for those days, and so it's difficult for me to be quite as quick on my responses, but still I'll respond within 24 hours almost always. If you don't hear from me within 24 hours, it probably means that somehow or another I hit the wrong button and I accidentally erased your note, or I clicked on it and it stopped showing as unread or something along those lines. I apologize. Send me another email. I definitely don't want to not respond to whatever question that you have. Okay. I usually offer additional office hours over the course of the semester. I will provide information about that as I am able to schedule those times, so you may want to look out for that information. It's usually going to be something that I make an announcement about. If you haven't seen an announcement about it and for whatever reason my usual office hours aren't convenient, as always you can I can schedule additional office hours, or we can you can participate in those additional hours that I'll have scheduled. So don't feel if these hours don't work for you that we can't get together. I have other times that I could be available as well. Okay, let's scroll down to the textbook. There is only one textbook for this course, and really I would say there really isn't a textbook for this course because this textbook is one that we use throughout the program. So unless this is your first course in the program, and if it is, welcome to the Paralegal Studies program. But if this isn't your first course, you almost certainly already have the Aspen Handbook. If this is your first course and you are deciding to continue in this program, please hold on to this book because you will need it throughout the course of the semester. It's not an expensive book. If you haven't purchased it yet, you don't need to buy the latest edition. If you can find it cheaper, a different edition, feel free to do so. So that's our only textbook for the course, but I will tell you that there's lots of items that you're responsible for reading on Canvas, and really the lectures are the textbook because what you would ordinarily maybe read in the book being described with written words, I am describing orally to you, and so the fact that there isn't much to read is kind of compensated by there being more lecture. Not more lecture than you would have in an ordinary face-to-face class, but still more lecture than maybe you otherwise would have on an online course. Okay, so let me scroll down a little bit more on the syllabus. Here's the method of evaluation. As I said, 5% is how much the class participation is, so that was an error that I had earlier on that document. English convention assignments, which are the grammar proofreading assignments, are collectively worth 10%. The document preparation assignments are worth 50%. There's twice as many of these as there are of the English convention assignments, maybe a little bit more. So these are weighted significantly higher. So let's say it's a bad week for you at work or you're sick or whatever, and you really only have time to do one of the two assignments. You'll want to do this one. This is the one that's going to get you more bang for your buck. So keep that in mind. Now, if you're a whiz at grammar and you don't have time to watch the video, I suppose this one you might be able to produce quicker. Some people would be able to. But generally speaking, this is where your real class emphasis ought to be. You can see that the midterm and the final collectively are only 35% of your grade. Sometimes students especially students who are doing well on the first three items, think to themselves, well, I did so well on these, I'm probably going to do really, really well on the midterm and final. Sometimes students do really well on those, but generally speaking, the examinations are more challenging, in part because they're closed notes. For these assignments, you get to look at all of the documents that I've made available to you, and it's all there for you to put into the document. So if you're looking for it, you're very, very likely to find it. But when you're taking an exam, you have to just be able to remember it. So please keep that in mind when you're preparing for these tests. Be sure that you're also reviewing all of those careful notes that you took for the lectures. Another thing I like to emphasize is that there's a fair amount of grammar on both the midterm and the final examination. Most students find that the most challenging part of the course, to work on those grammar things. So you may want to spend a little bit more time on the grammar aspects than you would other aspects of the material. When we get to the PowerPoint presentation, particularly slide 41, I go over some suggestions about when you have technical problems. There's lots of things that can go wrong. As we all know, computers, there's always something going wrong. We've all been there. We've all been in that situation. We've probably all been there with Canvas at some point. It's probably going to happen at some point over the course of the semester. I wish I could cause us both to avoid that frustration, but it is what it is, so to speak. Here are some general techniques you may want to consider. One is to change browsers. Canvas likes Firefox and Google Chrome a lot. But even these sometimes don't work. I've used Internet Explorer sometimes. So if whatever browser you're using doesn't seem to be working, just switch to a different browser. Another would be to reboot your computer. That oftentimes can solve a problem. Sometimes you're just looking at something and you're not seeing what's really there. We've all been there too, right? And so I'd encourage you to have a family member or a classmate look at it and say, hey, Groover said X is supposed to be here. I don't see it. And very likely the other person, if it really is there, will say, well, what about that? Oh, okay, now I see it. So asking for somebody else's support can be really helpful. Another would be to go to the computer lab. The computers in our computer lab are up to date. They're going to have Word. They're going to have all the other tools. It's going to be much less likely that you're going to have technical problems with those computers than the one that you have at your home. Another approach would be to contact the e-learning center. The people, the staff of the e-learning center have access to a lot of things that I don't have access to. They can correct, if there really is a problem with how your Canvas was set up for you, I can't fix that. The e-learning center can fix that. Plus, they're more sophisticated. They know more about what can go wrong and how to fix it than I can. If all those don't work out, or you think it's my error, please feel free to contact me. I will be, and certainly I am not infallible by any means, and I may well have forgot to turn on a certain thing or left something on that I should have. I apologize if that happens. I certainly didn't intend it to happen, and I'll be glad to fix it if I made that error. When you email me, again, don't use the Canvas messaging tool. Email it to me at cgroover@collin.edu. Also remember to follow email etiquette. The module 2 that we'll cover, so the one that we'll cover if this is a long semester during the second week, is about email etiquette. So once we get to module 2, you will have all the tools that you need to have to write effective emails. I would ask that you develop this practice, any correspondence that you have with me through email, that you follow that. I would also suggest that you adopt that when you're emailing any faculty member. One of the most common concerns that faculty members have, from what I've heard, both in the paralegal program and elsewhere, is that students don't know how to effectively communicate via email. And the benefit to you is that when the faculty member is able to understand what you want, and you're using it appropriately, you're going to get the information that you need faster. So dashing something off quickly in an email that doesn't end up communicating what you need it to communicate actually slows down you getting the information that you need to get. So please follow the email etiquette. I recommend that you look at slide 17 of the PowerPoint presentation, and also look in module 2 for all the ins and outs of how to email effectively. Also, even apart from your academic career, you need to be an effective emailer in your professional life, both to get the job and to be successful in your particular position. I think I've already mentioned this, but let me reiterate it. I do not accept any late work. That's why I give that week of grace period. So if you want to think about it, everybody automatically gets a week-long extension. Please don't ask. It just becomes an awkward conversation between us, and I'm not able to vary that information. I need to be consistent. Also, keep in mind that missing one assignment is okay. I would say most students miss an assignment over the course of the semester. We have a lot in this class, and that's one of the reasons I have a lot, because I don't allow late work. So yeah, more likely than not, you're going to miss an assignment. It's okay. That's not going to devastate your grade. You're going to be fine. You probably won't even lose a letter grade as a result of it. So please try to avoid it by submitting stuff early, by coming to see me well in advance so we can get you in good shape. But understand that if you miss the deadline, you miss the deadline. I don't send out reminders. I do that because I'm trying to some extent replicate the real world. In this course, you're in a safe spot. If you make a mistake, you can't get sued for malpractice. You can't get fired from a job. The worst thing that can happen is you don't get a grade that you're thrilled with. Pretty small consequence compared to how it's going to be when you're working as a paralegal, where the errors that you make have really significant and long-lasting repercussions. Courts don't give you extensions. When it's due, and they don't send you reminders, and they usually don't even tell you the due date. You actually have to go to the rules and do the calculation yourself. So that's one of the reasons I don't send reminder notes. My suggestion would be to pause right now, the video, and to go through Canvas and to calendar all of the due dates. It's quite unlikely that the due dates will change. It's really only when there's kind of a catastrophic Canvas problem that I change due dates. I haven't done that. I don't know if I've ever done that. Very unlikely that it's going to happen. And if I do change the due dates, I will definitely send out a communication to everyone that that has happened. So calendar these now, and also keep in mind that you really need 2 calendaring points. One to reflect the due date, and another maybe a week or week and a half ahead saying, hey, I need to start working on this. Because if you only notice that something is due on the date that it's due, you really don't have the opportunity to become fully prepared with that. So having some kind of tickler file is a really important task. So again, I'm not doing this to be mean. I have been a student before. I know how awful it feels when you miss a deadline and you don't get credit. But I do that to prepare you so that if it happens here in a safe place, you can learn that lesson and not have it in the past. I'm going to share with you a personal story to kind of maybe make this a little bit more real. And I think most legal professionals have a story like this. When I was a new attorney, 2 years out of law school, I missed a deadline. It was a deadline that you couldn't recover from. There was no court that told me when this had to be done. It was an area that I did not practice in, and I miscalculated. It was completely my fault. And I was a day late with it, and a day late was, you might as well not even have filed it. I had to talk to my supervising attorney. We had to go to a partner. The malpractice carrier for that particular law firm had to be contacted. It was very embarrassing, and for many individuals that I could have been dismissed. It's not at all unusual for people to be dismissed under those circumstances and for there to be a blot on one's career as a result of that. It ended up that it didn't cost the law firm any money. It was pretty much of a non-event, but it could have gone the other way as well. And weeks and weeks went by that I wasn't sleeping as a result of that. I don't want you to ever have that experience. And if you get a 0 on an assignment and that gives you that insight so that when you're practicing, you will check and double check and triple check all of your due dates like I should have done but didn't, I will be so thrilled for you because I don't want you to go through what I did. And so I'm sitting back here thinking, how can I protect students from my bad experience that I caused myself? And this is the best way that I can see to do this. So I'm doing this really in an intent to help you, not to harm you. And hopefully you'll not miss any deadlines and be successful. This course is about attention to detail. You're not going to really write much. You're going to be formatting documents. So it's about things like fonts and margins and footers and things along those lines. You need to be very detail oriented. You need to proof and proof and proof again. You need to make sure that you're following all those issues, comparing your work against the key from previous homework submissions, comparing your work against the comments that I provided in other assignments, comparing your work against the lecture notes that I provide. So if you haven't already calendared all your due dates, please pause the video and do that now. Keep in mind that the discussion boards close a week before the assignments for that particular module are due. Always review the key and for the document assignments, the example model before completing the next assignment or before submitting the next assignment. Also, if you're struggling with the grammar assignments, be sure to watch those videos. So now I'm going to go into the PowerPoint. So I think we've completed. Let me just scroll here and show. Here's that information about ProctorU. And then here's the breakdown for all the different weeks. Okay, so let's go into the PowerPoint. So where will you find this PowerPoint? So you'll go down to orientation. You'll see it's this first item here. I've already opened it up. Most of the items in the PowerPoint I've already covered. So I'm going to do this rather quickly. Welcome. I want to reiterate that. Here's me. There's a little background about me. Give us information about where to find my office. Here's information about the textbook. I also give some information. This is also on the syllabus about other resources you might want to consider using. You don't need to use any of those resources. I provide them for people who really, really want to do a deep dive, but you absolutely don't need these resources, and you absolutely shouldn't buy them. They'd be really, really expensive. We try in the paralegal program to create online courses that as much as possible replicate the face-to-face experience. As you know, there will be a lecture or one or more lectures for every module. We want you, even those of you that aren't maybe as comfortable in the online format, to feel that you are getting the support that you need and that you have the attention and the time of the instructor when you need that. Again, a tour Canvas to make sure you're familiar with it, especially tour the orientation material. There's just so much there. I said earlier that you may want to do the online orientation, and I said there was a link for that. Well, this is this link that we talked about before. There are other Canvas training tools that you may want to consider using, especially if this is your first online course or you're not that comfortable with the online experience. Read your syllabus. Also read the announcements. This is a course where you get a lot of information through the announcements. Typically, there's going to be at least one announcement a week. Sometimes there'll be a lot more than one announcement a week. Again, it will be sent to your Cougar Mail address, or you can view the announcements on Canvas. As always, you need to make sure you're watching all of the lectures. Sometimes people will put me, there's a couple of fun ways of approaching lectures. Number one, if you're looking, you're going to spend a Saturday night home alone or whatever, or meeting with other students, you can, you know, have drinking games with my videos. Every time I say, you know, Times New Roman font, you can, you know, take a shot or whatever. You can also put me on, faster. You can listen to me as Alvin the Chipmunk might sound like. Finally, you can listen to me in your on your cell phone or some other tool. Obviously, you won't be able to see the video if you're driving or something along those lines, but if you're listening to a lecture, say for the second or third time, you can get a lot out of it, even though maybe you're not doing this deep dive. So consider those as alternatives to staring in front of a screen for the second or third time. You'll want to visit at least 3 times a week, log in by Tuesday at the latest. You may well have some weeks over the course of the semester that are just really busy for you. Perhaps you're sick, perhaps you have a crisis at work, perhaps you're going on a vacation. Awesome, wonderful, congratulations if it's the last item. You can work ahead. Everything is there for you to do. The lectures are there, the assignments are there, the materials are there. The only thing that you'll miss out on is you won't necessarily be able to see the comments from the previous week's assignment. So that's the only downside to working ahead. But still, if you have to do it, it's a good option for you. So I hope that you'll think about doing that depending upon your schedule. Sometimes students will say that maybe it's a student who already works in a law firm. Student might say, this is slide 17. This gives you some very general information about email communication. This should be Canvas here. I apologize, not Blackboard. This is a very rudimentary discussion about email communication. For a deeper dive, go to Module 2. So sometimes I will get a question from students, hey, you know, I work in a law firm. I know a lot about how to prepare documents, and how you prepare the documents is different from the way my boss prepares documents. Okay, that is very, very common. The way that we prepare documents in this class is a very well a very common way of preparing documents, and it's a very conservative way of preparing documents. You're not going to offend anybody if you prepare the documents the way that I instruct you to. You're going to have very crisp, good-looking, professional documents. But just because our method is a good one, it doesn't mean that there aren't other methods that are also good. And so just because your attorney prepares the documents differently does not make him or her wrong. It doesn't make Collin College wrong. It's just a different model of doing things. It's a little bit like saying, you know, a left-handed person is wrong when everyone ought to write with the right hand. No, there's variations. It's actually good professionally for you to be exposed to lots of different styles of document preparation. Most paralegals work at one time with more than one attorney, and typically different attorneys are going to have differing methods of organizing their items. And so when you're working with Bob, you'll do it his way. When you're working with Teresa, you'll do it her way, and you'll have to keep that straight. And so being exposed to more than one approach can be a really good professional opportunity. For our class, you'll follow the guidelines that I have. When you're working with your attorney, if your attorney expresses a preference, do it the way he or she wants it done. If the attorney doesn't express a preference, you may well want to consider adopting some of the things we do in this class. Sometimes students are concerned that an email, or excuse me, a submission might not have worked. Maybe they don't trust Canvas or some other issue. And so what they will sometimes do is send me an email saying, hey, can you send me an email to confirm that it's there? That's not necessary. Let me show you two things that will be relevant. So let's say that I am going to submit this assignment here. So I click on this assignment. I'm going to hit this button here, Submit Assignment, and I'm going to choose a file. I'm going to pick this document. It's a docx format, and I'm going to say, have a great day. Okay, and then I hit Submit. Over here is the document and the comment that I made. Let's say that, oh, is that the right document? Is that what I wanted to do? All I have to do is click on this, and I can see exactly what I submitted. Is this what I wanted? Yeah, that's what I wanted. Okay, so I'm in great shape. But let's say I look at this document here and say, oh no, I hit the wrong document. No worries, because I can resubmit. So I'm going to hit Resubmit. Okay, and I'm going to choose a different file. I'm going to choose practice true-false questions. Okay, so now when I hit Submit, this is going to go away. And now we'll have practice true-false questions. Here, and so I can check that. I can submit more than one thing. Let's say I want practice true-false questions and something else. So I'm going to pick practice true-false questions, open. I'm going to pick contract damage questions, hit Submit. And now you can see I have both documents. Let's say I tried to submit something that isn't doc format. So I'm going to pick a PowerPoint here. And you can see, this file type is not allowed. Accepted file formats are doc and docx. So you can see how it's just not going to work if I try to submit something else. So you'll be able to check to see what is submitted. You don't need to worry about Canvas letting you down. Now, if you do see something unusual, and it doesn't seem like it worked, what you can do is you can email the documents yourself. So let's say, I'm just not sure if this worked. Open up an email, a Cougar Mail email, send it to yourself, attach your documents that you want to submit for the assignment, and then hit send. And then you'll have a timestamp. And so if Canvas somehow or another didn't work right, and I say, I'm sorry, I couldn't grade what you submitted because I couldn't see it, you can say, well, I was worried about that, so I sent myself the documents. And then we can go into your email, I can see the timestamp, and then I will be willing to grade your assignment. That's never happened that we've needed to do that, not even once. But it's available to you. If that helps you sleep tonight, go for it. There's no need to send it to me. The fact that you send it to yourself with a timestamp is all that you need. So that's an option. You don't have to do it, but if you'd like to, you're welcome to. Okay, so let's go back to modules. And we have looked now at the PowerPoint. Now we're going to go down to frequently asked questions, FAQs. I've actually already downloaded the FAQs. Here we go. This is a good place to go as you're approaching it. The course has some general information. Here are some guidelines about your goals with the course as you're considering how to allocate your time. You know, grades are such a personal topic. Some people are very focused on achieving a certain grade. Some people are more focused on learning the material. That's a personal judgment call for you to make. As you're thinking about your goals and you aren't satisfied with the grades that you're making, probably the two best ways of improving that are, number one, coming to see me so that we can figure out what the roadblocks are, and number two, investing more time in the class. Probably doing both of those things will likely result in greater success for you. Here are some more ideas about, wait a second, let me go back to this PowerPoint. I don't think we were done with this. I apologize. So we'll go back to the FAQ in just a second, but I forgot to complete this. Here's the breakdown of the grades, weekly assignments, English conventions, midterm, ethics, class participation. Again, you may well want to go through these in a more careful manner. I'm flipping through these quickly because I've already covered the material in these documents. Slide 41. This one, I suggest that you print out the single slide. It can give you a cheat sheet for how to approach technical problems. So this is a helpful tool to keep in mind. And of course, have a great semester, of course. Hopefully we'll all have a great semester. So I'm going to go back to the FAQ. There is going to be lots of stuff. This isn't an especially hard course. In fact, I would say it's on the easier side for Collin courses because most of it has to do with formatting, so it's not, you know, intellectually difficult. It's just thinking through being that careful reader, that careful checker. But there's a lot of stuff to do. There's a lot of tasks to do. You know, the timeline adding up to the task probably isn't as long as, you know, your traditional course, but still there's a lot of steps and it's easy to get distracted or to forget one. And that's why I highly recommend that you calendar everything, and if you can, work ahead, because all of our lives can get to be crazy at certain points. I do not do makeup tests. I create a pretty significant window to take tests. So you will typically have a week or so to take the midterm, and you'll have at least a weekend and a few more days to take the final. It depends on whether it's a long or a shorter semester, how many days I can get for the final. But you'll have several days to do that. I encourage you to take the final earlier rather than later. I do that for two reasons. First of all, we all know that life happens. You know, you have a fender bender, you get sick, you have a crisis at work, one of your kids is sick, and you can't come when you had planned on waiting till the last day, and you just can't make it, or you can make it, but you feel awful. That's not obviously the best recipe for success. So I encourage you to plan to take it earlier so you don't have to worry about that kind of stuff. So you're setting yourself up for the greater success. The second reason I encourage you to take it earlier is that because these are computer-based tests, our testing centers don't have an infinite number of computers. And obviously there's lots of people taking computer-based tests, especially during finals week. How disappointing it would be if you showed up to take the final and there's no computers available for you. If you take it earlier, then if that happens, then you can come back or you can wait an extended period of time to do that. So for those two reasons, please plan on taking it earlier rather than later. If you show up for the last day and or you're planning on taking the last day and just something happens and you're not able to, and you have a very valid excuse, you know, you were in the hospital, or God forbid, and you say, hey, I need more time to make makeup time. Well, what I'll say is I'll need documentation to support that entire time. And so if I had the test available to you for 7 days and your doctor's note only covers 2 of those 7 days, then there won't be a makeup. You'll need to have it for all of those 7 days. As a practical matter, unless you're very sick, a makeup just isn't going to work under those circumstances. So please plan to do it earlier so that you won't be in the position of not being able to do that or having to do a makeup. Let me just make sure there's nothing else I want to cover. And again, here are some of these pointers that I was talking about before on slide 41. Here are some, and the FAQs are talking about some of those ways of approaching those problems. Well, I'd like to conclude by wishing you a great semester. I'm so excited about teaching this course. I have to say that this is a course that can really be very meaningful for your professional success. We're going to talk about how to write letters. Well, guess what? When you submit your resume, you need a cover letter. And you're going to have the tools available to do an amazing cover letter. It's going to look beautiful. It's going to be impressive. And so my goal is to set you up so that you can get the job and that you can excel at the job once you get there. It will seem at times that I'm nitpicky and worrying about trivialities, but I'm doing that not to make life more stressful than it needs to be, but to remove stress. Because honestly, when I prepare legal documents, I don't even have to think about these things because I've been doing it, you know, for so many years. And you'll get to that point too. You probably won't get to it in 15 weeks, but you'll start down that road. And you won't even have to think about, am I doing Times New Roman? When you see other fonts, you'll think, ick, that looks awful. And you'll know to switch it right away. And so my goal is to make this stuff automatic for you. And I hope that it will quickly and relatively painfully get to that point. But if you do have problems, please reach out to me. I provide a great deal of support for students who come to see me. I want to help you. I want you to be successful. And I know that you can be successful. I've had students who were not doing it all well in the course, who started coming to see me, and they were able to submit some beautiful documents and do well in the course by the end of the semester. So again, thank you for your attention. Have a wonderful day, and remember to browse Canvas, get familiar with it, and let's have a wonderful semester. Bye-bye.